Hey everyone, welcome to my library. My name is Melissa, and today I am coming to you with a 4-month wrap up. Yeah, I have a lot to cover. This is basically all of the books I've read since I've had my baby, all the books I've read on maternity leave so far. I have about a month and a half left of me just spending time at home and being with Sam. So it's been honestly the best. I've loved it. It's been so nice, and I have done quite a bit of reading actually. I'm really proud of the fact that I've read 15 books so far over that space of time. And so yeah, I just wanted to cover all the books I've read. I'm not going to go into that much detail, obviously, because even just me spending a minute or so on each book will take 15 minutes. So yeah, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but I did want to just show you guys what I've been reading lately. So the first book that I ended up finishing in April, so we're going clear all the way back to April. And the first book I read in April was Murder at the Brightwell by Ashley Weaver. This is a murder mystery by an author that I have fallen in love with this year. She wrote the Electra McDonald series that I've been talking about a ton. That's a recent series of hers, and this is an older series. It's the first book in her Amory Ames series, and I really wanted to give it a shot and see how I liked it, and I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't enjoy it as much as the Electra McDonald series, obviously, but I was here for the ride. It's set in a seaside resort in the British coastal area, and it's kind of a closed circle mystery, I guess you would say. The 2 main characters are actually husband and wife in this, trying to solve the case together, but they're kind of estranged in the beginning of this book. They have a lot of baggage they need to kind of figure out together, and so they kind of start in this book figuring that out. And so it was fun that was the kind of unique storyline, I would say, with this series. Is it's a husband and wife kind of like rekindling their love. But I didn't really like the husband. I can't even remember his name. It starts with an M. But I didn't really like him. Like, he was kind of a jerk. Maybe he gets better as the series goes along, and maybe that's the point of it. But yeah, so them solving this crime, I was just kind of like not rooting for him. I liked the main girl in it, but yeah, so that was my main kind of like issue with this story. And anyways, it was still really enjoyable. And if you guys are wanting kind of like a Downton Abbey meets a murder mystery kind of feel, that's definitely what this series is. So yeah, so there's the first book. Okay, the second book I read was on a whim. It was a book that was just calling to me on my shelf, so I decided to pick it up. And that is Cold Sassy Tree by Olive Ann Burns. It randomly has this weird step back. But this is a slice of life Southern family tale, and it's set in the 1950s, and basically or not 1950s, early 1900s. What am I talking about? But yeah, so basically what happens at the beginning of this book that is like the catalyst for everything else that goes on is this grandpa of the main character. His name is Will, but the grandpa of the main character ends up announcing to him and all of his family that he is going to get married to this young girl that has recently moved into town and is kind of like the store manager of this random store. And it throws everyone for a loop because his wife has just recently passed away, I think maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. And obviously his wife is Will's mom's mom, right? So like Will's mom is freaking out about how can he do this? Like, she's not even cold in her grave, da la 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 la. And so it just goes on from there with a lot of Southern charm. And of course the town, this is set in a really small town. The town is in an uproar about it and doesn't know what to think. And it's kind of a navigating a story of of Will and his grandpa kind of like bonding. And I don't know how else to describe it, but it's really, really cute. I mean, the blurb on the top of this says, a book about love and death, both funny and deeply touching. And that's totally how it is. It's funny, but it's also just really heartfelt, and I loved it. so yeah, I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I'm so glad that you guys, I remember hauling this maybe last year, and a lot of you on that video ended up telling me, yes, you need to read this book. It was one of my favorites. And so, yeah, I'm really glad I read it. Most random title of the year award. but yeah, so there's this one. Okay, so the next one I read, it was highly anticipated, a 5-star prediction for me. And that was Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon. So yes, Amy Harmon, one of my favorite authors. She wrote What the Wind Knows, which was my favorite book of 2020. I loved also From Sand and Ash by her, my second favorite book of 2021. So yeah, I had high hopes for this one, and I've heard such amazing things about it. And I ended up listening to it on audio. And guys, I only ended up giving this 3 stars. I feel terrible for saying that, but yeah, that's really kind of where I landed with this book. And really, I think it was more my own, how do I say this? My own experience, my own kind of like background and childhood kind of coming into the story, and maybe like tainting my view of it, I guess, because this story follows a wagon train, and they're going west, obviously, and then it follows Naomi, who's the main girl in the story, and her romance with I can't even remember the main character, the main dude's name, but was it Will? I swear it was Will, and now it was some basic name like that, but anyways, yeah, it's their romance, and also it was just kind of like an epic quest journey type of story. But the reason why I didn't end up loving it was because I grew up in Utah, and I grew up knowing the history of the pioneers and the history of people going west, and that's exactly how Utah was settled, was by all these pioneers that ended up doing this, and like the covered wagons, all that. And so I'd heard all these kind of stories before, and so when I was listening to this story, there wasn't anything unique or new that I came across. Like, I think a lot of people's reviews of it was like, wow, I had no idea that this was like part of America's history, blah 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 blah. But for me, like, it was something that I grew up knowing and learning about, and like constantly being reminded of. And so yeah, it just didn't feel that special, and so that's kind of why I ended up not loving it. And I mean, it was fine. It was still a good book. I still recommend if you guys are interested in it, but it wasn't anything amazing. So that's why I ended up on 3 stars with that book. I did enjoy the audiobook though. It's really well done. It's with 2 separate narrators for both Naomi and the main dude. I can't remember his name. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that was fun too, to have like a 2 people narrating the book. So anyways, okay, the next book I ended up reading was also a 5-star prediction, and that was The Bastard by John Jakes. So I actually ended up reading this. This was the first book I ever read on my Kindle. yeah, so I got a Kindle because of Sam. Like I wanted an easier way to read while I was feeding him. And obviously, like, a Kindle is so easy to just hold one-handed, and just I finally succumbed and got one. I actually was gifted one. I put it on my baby registry, and my aunt kindly gifted it to me. So yeah, this was the first book I read on my Kindle, and I loved this so much. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This is the first of a very long series. It's not still running, but a long series, the Kent Family Chronicles. And this follows a family throughout America's history, and it starts out in the American Revolution, or I guess kind of like the lead up to that. And so so it follows Philippe as he navigates both a lot of conflict happening within his family sphere, I guess I would say, in England, and he is supposed to inherit a ton of I mean he is part of how do I say this right? He's supposed to inherit because his dad obviously he's a bastard son of a very wealthy man who he should inherit from, but he gets his inheritance is basically taken from him, and he has to start afresh in America. And so so he sails to America, starts up as a printer there, and it's just a lot of like drama with like the other son that is involved. He's the enemy in this book, and I don't know how else to describe it, but it was just so fun. I just loved this. And I can't wait to continue in the series. The next one is The Rebels, and I should be getting to that soon. It was just all the John Jakes greatness. I didn't love it as much as North and South, but definitely a very good start to the series, and I can't wait to continue. So yeah, here's this one. Let's see, the next one, this is the 5th book, Murder on Black Swan Lane. I've forgotten the author and I didn't write it down, but you guys can see who it is. So this is another murder mystery. I listened to this on audio. This is historical, and it's set in Victorian London. And this was kind of pitched to me as, if you love the Victoria Speedwell series, you might love this book or this series. And so that's kind of what I went in knowing. And I definitely think that's the case. It's got those vibes for sure. I only ended up giving this 3 stars, but the reason for that was the mystery itself for me was super complex and way over my head. The plot is just really scientific, and I don't know how to describe it, but it was just a lot of facts and a lot of background into like chemistry, and anyways, it was just a little bit too much, to be honest. And so that's why I ended up only giving this 3 stars. I liked the main characters in it. The main male lead and the main female lead were really fun together, and they brought a lot of interesting perspective. Specifically the main female lead, I can't remember her name, but she is a famous cartoonist, and so she runs it undercover, like with a pseudo name kind of deal. But yeah, she ends up basically making cartoons for like political events or what have you, to like kind of like illustrate the times. And so she ends up kind of getting involved in this murder mystery case. And so it was just fun. I enjoyed it. 3 stars. Okay. The next book I ended up reading this is a 5-star read for me, This Calder Range by Janet Daly. Yeah, I was just in the mood for a fun yeehaw western kind of book, and I picked this up on a whim and so enjoyed it. Oh my gosh, I loved it. This was very like Lonesome Dove meets a historical romance. And yeah, so basically it follows Benteen Calder, who is the kind of like father of the Calder empire as the series goes on. But basically he ends up deciding he wants to start his own cattle range and cattle company in Montana. Currently, like at the beginning of the book, he's in Texas. And so he decides he's going to move to Montana, and he's engaged at the beginning of this book to the main female lead as well. The main female lead's name is Lorna. And so yeah, so Benteen and Lorna, it was a very like whirlwind relationship to get them to be engaged. And so really what ends up happening is when they get married and go on this huge journey to Montana, they really get to know each other. And so it's really the like kind of struggles and like just cute moments between the two as they grow to love each other over the course of this journey to Montana. And also there's a lot more involved in it with other characters as well who are part of this cattle company. And that's what really reminded me of Lonesome Dove too, because there was just a span of characters and a lot of things happening to them. And it was just an adventure. I just loved it. And anyway, so yeah, so impressed by this. And I couldn't wait to continue in the series. So actually I'll cover the second book in the series later when I got to that as well. So yeah, loved it. I can't wait also to continue and read the third book. That's next on my list as well. So yeah, here's this one. I love this cover too. It's so good. I actually ended up reading this on ebook as well though. So yeah, I read a lot of Kindle books. Okay, the next book I read physically, and that was The Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy. So yeah, this is the only classic on the list. I didn't read a lot of classics, I guess, but that's okay. I still love classics. It's a genre that takes time and takes a lot of brain power, so maybe that's why it was kind of not the mood I was in for the past 4 months. But anyways, back to this. So yeah, The Return of the Native, one of the most beautifully written nature writing and like setting ever. I just loved being completely immersed in this world that Thomas Hardy has created, and in the lives of the characters within this small town. In Egdon Heath is this town that this is centered in. And I mean, in the end, this story is very basic. It's kind of like a love story, but like tragic. It's a tragic love story, I would say. And it's also just like characters coming to terms with the decisions they've made that have impacted their futures, I guess is how you would describe this book. But yeah, it was really good. I loved it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars only because I thought that it was a little too basic of a plot. But the writing always has impressed me with Thomas Hardy, and I can't wait to read another Thomas Hardy. He is one of my favorite authors for sure. Far From the Madding Crowd is one of my favorite books ever. It is so good. You have to read it if you have not read that book, and you're at all a classics reader or interested in that. Oh, it is so good. The love story in that book, amazing. But yeah, so yeah, 4 stars for The Return of the Native. Okay, the next book was also a 5-star read, and Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. I read it for my book club, actually, like my in real life book club, and that was The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. Everyone and their mother has read this book, so I'm sure I'm just kind of like preaching to the choir at this point, but yes, I loved this. I listened to this on audio. Highly recommend the audiobook if you have not read this book, or if you're wanting to reread in a different format. The narrator did an amazing job. If you guys aren't familiar with this story, it is narrated by Death. Death is a character in this book, and it's such an interesting perspective to come at from that angle, and that's what I loved about the narration. Was the guy that narrates it did such an amazing job at that. But then also it follows the story of Liesel, who is a orphan girl that gets adopted by the Menningers, and they're a German family, a poor German family, and she gets brought up by them, and she ends up having to join the Hitler Youth. She ends up also kind of rebelling in her own way with that. And really what it is, it is a story of how Germany kind of just went terribly downhill when the war started, and also just the hatred and like incomprehensible acts that were done, and also the moments of like the tiny moments of humanity that also occurred. I don't know, it was just beautiful. I just loved it. It was so fun to like have a child's perspective in it as well. And Rudy is one of my favorite characters ever. I loved Rudy. I also loved the dad, Papa. Oh my gosh, what a pure, gentle sweetheart. He stayed up with Liesel every single night that she had nightmares. And anyways, oh, it's so good. And it reminds me that I still need to watch the movie. I looked it up on IMDb and learned that Jeffrey Rush plays plays Papa in it, and I cannot wait. Like, that sounds amazing. So yeah, I need to watch the movie, but absolutely love this book so much. 5 stars all the way. One of the most uniquely written books and beautifully written books ever, hands down. So, okay, the next book I read as well physically, and that was Vows by Laverl Spencer. Yes, my girl Laverl. I love Laverl Spencer, as you guys know. She writes amazing historical romances. They're so full of heart and depth and character, and there's always like it's I don't know how to describe it other than just like it's a romance that you can just sink your teeth into. Like, it is so it's always so well thought out, and it's just a world that you get completely lost in. And that was the case as well with Vows. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. So basically the story of this is it follows this girl who is thought to be really like meant for this man. She's about to get engaged to him, and she's kind of just grown up knowing she was going to marry him. They're like best friends. But then this new man comes to town, Tom, and throws her for a loop, and she ends up thinking maybe I'm wrong in what I assumed who I loved. And so yeah, so it's kind of a love triangle. Lots of drama with that, a lot of love triangle drama. But there's also another romance in this book besides the main one that is with Emily's dad and his long lost kind of love that comes back after her mom dies. to kind of keep the family together, because her mom and this woman were best friends. And so she comes back to kind of help with the family cope with that. And then also what ends up happening is the dad and her kind of rekindle their romance. So yeah, it was really good. It was a really, really good story. I just loved it. Okay, the next book I ended up reading, the next 3 books are all 2022 releases. I just got in a kick where I wanted to read new releases. So yeah, here we go. So the next one was The Lost Summers of Newport. That's by Beatrice Williams, Lauren Willig, and Karen White. They're a trio of authors that write together a lot. I've also read another book by them, and I can't remember what it was called. All the Ways We Said Goodbye. I read that by them as well. I was excited about this story because it's set in Rhode Island, and it's set in it's 3 different timelines. That's always how it happens with these 3 authors, is it's 3 different timelines. And so I think obviously probably each author takes on one of the stories. And I'm sorry if you can hear the buzzing in the background. That's my landscapers. Yeah, they're going to town with the leaf blower, and it's anyways, I'm trying to find time to film while Sam is asleep, so I'm just gonna keep going, and I apologize if it's really annoying. I hope it doesn't go on for too much longer. But yeah, so this follows 3 different women who are entrenched in this this mansion in Newport, and this family's secrets that are kind of enveloped within this mansion, and the history of it. And of course it goes over the early 1900s, Vanderbilts, Astors kind of time. And then it also covers Jacqueline Kennedy era of Newport, and then modern day. And anyways, I was really looking forward to it because that's such a fascinating setting, and something I've been interested in. And I was actually going to go in October last year. I was going to go do a fall foliage trip down the East Coast, and also visit Newport and explore the mansions there and stuff. And I was so looking forward to it. But then for just various reasons, it didn't work out. We ended up going to London instead, which I can't complain about, obviously. But yeah, so I thought I would kind of listen to this book and imagine myself being there. And yeah, I did enjoy it. I just felt that, and maybe I just need to kind of accept that with these 3 authors. I felt that the stories weren't fleshed out enough. I didn't feel connected enough to any of the characters, really, because we didn't have that much time between them. And so it was kind of just very surface level. And so yeah, I don't know. It was good, but it was very, very basic. I don't know how to describe it, but that's kind of how I felt. So I gave it 3 stars. If you're interested in that kind of time period, you might enjoy this book, but I bet there's better books out there about that history that I need to find too. So if you have any recommendations, let me know down below. Okay, the next book I read on ebook, so I don't have it with me, but this was also a 2022 release, and that was Girls of Flight City by Lorraine Heath. So I was so looking forward to this book because it's by one of my favorite authors of historical romances, Lorraine Heath. Love her. I've loved her books before, and this was her first foray into historical fiction. And so I was stoked because it also is the story of, it's set in Texas, which is a niche of mine that I love. Set in Texas about the women who ended up helping train cadets coming through and during World War II. And very similar a la to Flight Girls, which you guys know I loved. So I was really excited about it. And yeah, I read it in like a couple days. It was a quick read. I didn't love it as much as I hoped. I only gave it 3 stars. Again, I just felt like it wasn't fleshed out enough. I didn't feel connected enough to any of the characters, especially the main female character in it. I just didn't feel like she had much going for her that was unique, or like that I was like, ooh, that's cool. That's something, you know, fun that I can like connect with for her. She was just kind of like, yeah, very blah. I don't know. And the whole book was just kind of very blah. So yeah, I didn't love it, but it was still fine. And I'm glad I got to it because it was very highly anticipated for me. But if you're gonna read about that time period, about that kind of story, definitely Flight Girls all the way by Noelle Salazar. That's what I would recommend. So I think maybe Lorraine Heath, hopefully her next historical fiction is a little bit better, or maybe she should stick to historical romances. I don't know. It just didn't click with me, so. Hey guys, so it is actually a couple weeks since I last filmed. I am busy. To say the least, I'm busy. So anyways, I wanted to wrap up this wrap up. It's so sad that I didn't get to the final 4 books. Sam interrupted me. He started crying, so I had to stop. And I had every intention to continue on in another time, either that day or the next day, to finish this up. But obviously life got away with me, so here we are. But anyways, there's 4 more books I want to talk about to wrap this up. So the next book I read was The Key to Deceit by Ashley Weaver. This is the 2nd book in the Electra McDonald series, and this series is a recent series by her, and it's a historical mystery series set in World War II. And it follows Electra, who is a locksmith. Like she picks locks for her living. And in the first book, she gets caught and has to, in order to basically free her of her charges, she has to help the British government uncover this mystery. And in that, she meets Major McDonald, or not Major McDonald, Major Ramsey, who is a major in the army, and he's in charge of the whole operation. And they strike up a really slow burn romance, and it's still going. And so it continues in this 2nd book, and that's what I was here for, honestly. I was so here for that. I enjoyed the mystery part of it, but there's something about how Ashley Weaver weaves in the little tiny moments between the 2 characters that is so, so good. And so, yeah, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's a new release, and I cannot wait to continue in the series. So there is that. Okay, the next one is Dear Mrs. Bird. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was a highly anticipated book for me. I thought it was going to be more like a 4 or 5 star read, so I'm kind of sad it wasn't. And I know for a lot of other people it is, and a lot of other people love this historical fiction book. I enjoyed it. I just, the major conflict in the book that is towards the end of it, I just thought was blown way out of proportion, and I thought the characters were kind of acting very very childish about it. I don't know. There was just, yeah, the main reason why the 2 main best friends end up like kind of being estranged and fighting, and then coming back together. the reason why that ends up happening, I just thought was so silly. And so anyways, that's why I didn't love it. But I really did love the historical element of it. And I liked the, so it's about this woman who really wants to be like a professional war journalist, but she ends up applying and getting this job that she thought was going to be more official like that, but it ends up being more of a women's help, like write-in answer situation. And initially she's very sad about it, but then realizes like she can do just as much good for the war effort, helping answer women's questions and issues that are brought up in the home front. And so she ends up taking up this job, and it's just about her friendships. And anyways, it was good, but I didn't love that conflict. So that's why I ended up giving it 3 stars. Okay, the next book I read, I have a physical copy of, and that is Stanza Calder Man by Janet Daly. So this is number 2 in the Calder series. And as you guys know, I loved the first one. Oh my gosh, so good. I gave it 5 stars. This is a very Western historical romance. The next book in the series is this one, and it follows their son, and his name's Webb. And it follows his romance and also how he deals with this ranch and it being bequeathed to him, and all of the conflict that happens that arises over the Western migration, basically. This is a really a look into so if you guys know the Rodgers and Hammerstein song, this is so silly, but if you guys have watched Oklahoma, and you know how there's this conflict between the farmers and the cowboys, and there's this song that's like, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. If you guys know what I'm talking about, let me know down below. But anyways, that whole scenario is played out in this book. And so anyways, so Webb is obviously a cowboy, and he falls in love with a ranch girl who is married. And so it is like a kind of like an adultery situation in this book, but anyways, it's not as bad as it sounds. I won't give any spoilers, but yeah, so it's kind of like their forbidden love, and then them finally getting together. And I enjoyed this book. I only ended up giving it 3 stars though, mainly because this is touted and obviously is sold as a historical romance. However, the major element to a romance that involves an HEA, or happily ever after, that makes it a romance, is somewhat missing in this tale. So I won't give any more spoilers to that, but that really upsetted me, because that's something that is so, that typifies the romance genre. And if you miss that, and if you don't have that in your book, then it's a real turn off for me, at least. So yeah, so I liked the story of obviously the Calders and their continuing their reign. But yeah, I didn't love that part of it. So 3 stars. However, I picked up the next book, the 3rd one that I'm reading right now, called This Calder Sky. I'll put a picture here. And I'm excited to just dive into more of the Calder story. So yeah, that's the next in the installment, and I'm really here for it. So, okay, the last book I have to talk about today, I absolutely loved. I've been binging this series. If you guys have been following me, you know that. Binging for me, at least, like as in reading all of them in less than a year, really. And that is Slightly Sinful. You can barely see the cover because it's so shiny, but Slightly Sinful by Mary Balog. So this is number 5 in the Bedouin Saga series, and this one was the most unique historical romance plot I've ever read. It was so captivating, and at first I was a little bit trepidatious about it because it's set in a brothel, and it's about Elaine Bedwin, who ends up being comatose after he fights in the Napoleonic Wars, and he's recovered and taken to this brothel to address his injuries. And anyways, he ends up striking a friendship and then a romance with one of the women in the brothel, who he thinks is a prostitute, but she is not what she seems. And her and her friends, and actually the friends are part of the brothel, are needing to go and reclaim this woman's fortune that's been stolen from her, and he ends up wanting to help them with that. He knows he's a gentleman, but he actually has no memory of who he is, so it's an amnesia trope as well. And anyway, so he fakes that he's engaged to the girl in this. I can't remember her name. What's her name? Rachel. That's right, Rachel York. So it's also like fake dating. Anyways, there's a lot going on in this story, but it was so good. I loved it. I loved the romance. I loved the dynamic between all of the characters, and I also loved the really like feminist take on this story, because it does talk about how prostitutes are viewed in such a demoralizing and like they're not viewed as human, really, and they don't have any emotions, or that they don't deserve love, or etc., etc. And this kind of addresses that. And anyways, it was just fascinating. I loved it. So I'm so glad I read it. I cannot wait for the next one. The next one is like, has been built up this whole series, because it's the love story of the brother, the Duke in this story, that he's the oldest in the family. He's kind of the pseudo patriarch of the family. And he's kind of just this huge grump, but he's also, you can tell, loves his family and cares for his family. And so it's his love story, and I cannot wait to read that. So that's the next in the series. I actually have it on my Libby app to listen to. I've been listening to these series, even though I own them all physically. I've been listening to them because they're narrated by my favorite narrator of all time, Rosalind Landor. So yeah, I've been listening to it, and I have the next one ready to go for whenever I want it to be read. So it'll probably be my next audiobook after I finish what I'm currently listening to, which is The Bloomsbury Girls by Natalie Jenner. If you guys are curious, it's a new 2022 release as well. And it's highly anticipated for me because the author wrote the Jane Austen Society, which was one of my favorite books of 2020. So I'm very, very eager to, well, and I'm currently reading it, but I'm enjoying it immensely. I think I'm like 30-40% of the way in, and it has all of the same vibes. So yeah, highly recommend. It's actually, I guess, a series. Like this is the second in it, but really it just follows one character from the Jane Austen Society as she continues in her life and what ends up happening to her. So yeah, anyways, that was my wrap up of the last 4 books in this 15 book wrap up. Holy cow, I'm so glad I finally got to film this and get it up for you guys. I know it's been a long time since I have uploaded anything, but I also need to film my Autumn Amour TBR. Yes, I'm still hosting this. It's still happening. Please check out all the other hosts and my announcement video that is my most recent video. I am really excited about it, and yeah, I need to come up with the books I'm gonna read for it. So that is my next video. Who knows, maybe I'll get it done today and I'll be wearing the same outfit and not really care. But anyways, with all that being said, please like and comment and subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye! Bye.